Hey guys, welcome. I'm Steve Climby with South Aviation Group here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Rob Saravalo, the CEO of Tropic Ocean Airways.
Hey everybody. Steve, good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
So tell me about Tropic Ocean Airways.
So yeah, Tropic Ocean Airways, we're actually the largest amphibious airline in the world. Notice I didn't say the largest seaplane airline because they're bigger seaplane airlines, but we differentiate ourselves. We can actually land on the runway, runway to runway, runway to water, water to water. We have that versatility. I founded the company back in 2009. I was flying for the Navy at the time. I was actually a Top Gun instructor, flew jets. Had this stupid idea to sell my car, my house, and my boat, and my motorcycle, and everything else, and start a company. So we launched with one small seaplane, and we actually relaunched seaplane service out of Fort Lauderdale to Bimini back in 2011. Mm-hmm. The Bahamas had not seen commercial seaplane service since 2005. So we relaunched that, and we grew the company to where we are today. We're a fleet of 14 Cessna Caravans, 12 on floats, 2 on wheels. We carry about 60,000 people a year. We operate here in the Bahamas. We have a partner airline that's based out of Nassau called Coco. We also operate up in the Northeast, New York City, the Hamptons. And we do some Caribbean work pre-COVID, and we'll be down there next year.
Very cool. So was it sort of an organic transition? I mean, how did you say, I want to build this airline, or did you see a need in the market? How did that work?
Yeah, great question. So look, the Bahamas, it's a beautiful place. There's 700 islands in archipelago, really difficult to get around, right? So and you need to go anywhere. If you want to go to a yacht in the Exumas, you got to fly into a main airport, maybe then catch a smaller puddle jumper, then catch a boat. So we looked at it. We looked at other places around the world, like the Maldives, where you have this connectivity between the islands. And really, the only way to do that without building more runways in the Bahamas is get amphibious airplanes.
Sure.
So we saw a great opportunity to really create that connectivity and solve a lot of the airlift challenges that the Bahamas has by putting a network of seaplanes in. And it's really worked. You know, we fly direct to yachts. We fly direct to cruise ship islands because we now have a medevac product where we could actually pull people out who get hurt in a partnership with a company called Riva Air Ambulance. Mm-hmm. And we also have that domestic airline that we partner with too that can actually take people between the islands in the Bahamas. And it's really starting to, I would say, solve a lot of the challenges that the Bahamas has seen for airlift.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So who are your customers?
Yeah, our customers anywhere from, so we have a scheduled service product too. That goes to Bimini, to Nassau. We fly 6 days a week to Nassau. Mm-hmm. We actually fly every day to Bimini. We have a great harbor product, and we're expanding more of that. So our customer is a per-seat customer, either a business traveler that'll spend the night, or a family that's going over for a couple of days to go gamble at Bahama or Atlantis, right?
Yep.
That's the lower end in terms of the per-seat market, all the way to the person who says, you know what, I want a seaplane to follow my yacht for a week, so I want you guys to just follow us around island to island to island. And that's obviously a larger customer. And then everything in between. So we service cruise ships, the cruise ship private islands. We service, again, I would say like yacht brokers to move people in and out, provisioning for yachts, things like that. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if you think about all of the resorts that are in the Bahamas that are really difficult to get to, we could take you right up to the beach in front of your house there.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. And so talk a little bit about the medevac. So, I mean, you have these planes that always have seats in them, and how does that whole process work? I mean, do you have one plane that's dedicated just to medevac? How hard is it to fulfill that need?
Yeah. So that really started. We've been looking at it for a few years, and it's really tough if you hurt yourself in the Bahamas to get out,
no
as
question.
You know,
yep.
Whether you're on a boat or on a resort. And then when Hurricane Joaquin hit in 2015, we did a lot of evacuations for that. In 2019, Hurricane Dorian devastated the northern Bahamas. We moved our fleet in, and we flew to all these little keys. And within 10 days, we evacuated 900 people out of the northern Bahamas. And we said, look, there's obviously a great opportunity to, I would say, improve the quality of care in the Bahamas. So we partnered with Riva Air Ambulance, and we'll take our airplane. The Caravan, by the way, is very versatile. So it's got 8 or 9 seats in the back. Within an hour, we can have a stretcher on board with oxygen, fully self-contained, 2 medical personnel, and we can launch an airplane. And we'll fly straight to a yacht, get people off the yacht onto our airplane, and go straight to MIA and get them to Jackson Memorial within an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And in terms of the medevac being a growing segment of your business, how does that compute with the other stuff you do, the passenger and other stuff with yachts, provisioning, parts?
Great question. I think, I hear, that you should always focus on one thing in business. Mm-hmm. So we focus on one thing, which is that last mile point to point, difficult to get to places. Mm-hmm. And within that little one thing, we can carry, carry passengers rather to a luxury resort. We can carry provisioning. We've flown fresh fish into the Bahamas, which is probably caught in the Bahamas, right, in the process, and then brought back,
sure.
right? So you've got that cargo piece, and you've got the medevac piece, and everything in between. So we're really focused on, utilizing these airplanes to go point to point where other people can't, solve that problem, and we don't care whether we're flying a customer. We'll give you a 5-star experience if you're a guest on board, or if we're flying medevac, and everything in between.
And so, but this didn't exist before. I mean, I guess everybody kind of knows about chocks from back in the day, but not like this. I mean, that was a
chocks was
relic of the 90s and the 80s. And
yeah, I mean, look, Miami Vice, we both grew up in Miami Vice, of course, right? I love chocks. And but chocks was a scheduled airline that was focused on certain routes, right? What we do now, which is really that broad dynamic capability, has never existed. And it's existed maybe in little parts. So if you look at Alaska, when I talk about seaplanes, people think of the bush plane and the bush pilot and the beard and the can of oil, the 1950s airplane, I always joke, I'm like, we're Delta Airlines that lands in the water. With my background, we really developed a training program that's never existed, which is based on how the U.S. Navy trains pilots. My operations team are ex-U.S. Navy and U.S. Air Force guys that are senior guys. That actually one of them was actually one of my instructors.
Very cool.
So we've really created this we've professionalized the image of the bush pilot and created a professional organization that actually can do this safely and professionally.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. So you operate these Cessna Caravans. What makes that plane so versatile? Why is that your choice?
Yeah, so that airplane, I mean, we've looked at other airplanes, and we're actually adding PC-12s so we could get that point-to-point last mile a little bit longer. A PC-12 is a great pressurized airplane.
Sure.
You can only land it in the water once, okay? But these airplanes, again, I mean, they fly them all over the world, right? In places like Africa and South America and in Afghanistan and in the most remote locations, extremely reliable. The PT-6 engine is extremely reliable. So the idea Pratt & Whitney, right? The idea of the single engine is unsafe. If you look at the majority of accidents that have happened in this region over the last 15 years, they're multi-engine piston, So you've got a very reliable engine on a very reliable airframe that you could take floats on and off. It could land in the water, it could land on land, you could have seats in it, you could take it out, put a stretcher in there, or just load it with pallets. And it's just got that versatility. And again, it goes back to our strategy, which is last mile, point to point, difficult places to get to, will carry people, whatever you need. And I think the airplane is the perfect platform for it. Plus, when you think about the luxury market, flying people to a yacht, it's an air-conditioned cabin. It's a turbine engine. So it's actually a very, very comfortable high-end ride where everybody gets a window seat. Right?
Very cool. So, and I mean, I'm sure you've had your experiences with nervous flyers. A lot of people get on there and they're like, I don't know about this little thing. What's this little puddle jumper that's the term you always hear, right? So I guess you can just say, hey guys, it's got floats on it. We can just land no matter what.
Can land anywhere, but which is funny. If you actually go on some of our reviews on TripAdvisor and Facebook, people will say, I've never flown in a small airplane, I've never flown in a seaplane, and then literally they'll post, this is the only way I want to go to the Bahamas from now on. So once they experience it, they see the professionalism of the crew. We fly with 2 pilot crews. They get in that air-conditioned cabin, they get the beautiful sights, and they land in this gorgeous place, and they realize, wow, this is actually pretty safe, and this was fun, and these guys and girls look like they know what they're doing. They always come back.
So, and about how long does it take to get to your normal destination? So obviously you do Bimini every day, you do Nassau 6 days a week. How fast does this thing go?
It's not the fastest airplane out there, but I mean, Bimini is great, right? So Bimini is a cool location because it's an 18-minute flight. Once you're airborne, it's 18 minutes later. You could see the island halfway over, right? So I always tell people, I'm like, I've got friends of mine, I said, look, go to Bimini for the night. You know why? I mean, where else you could drive to Miami, it's going to take you 35 minutes, or you could fly 18 minutes and get your passport stamped and play craps, right? So Bimini's close. Then you've got Nassau, which is about an hour and 10 tops in this airplane. And keep in mind, people say, well, JetBlue takes 45 minutes, but you got to show up an hour prior, you got to go through TSA, and then when you land, you might be behind British Airways, and, right? So here, when we land at a private terminal, so it takes about 3 minutes to clear customs, you're in and out.
Gotcha.
So really that hour and 10 is an hour and 10. Whereas opposed to if you're traveling on a large commercial airline, it might be two plus hours, right? And then the Exumas, now you're talking about like an hour and a half or so to get down there.
Yeah,
it's still within reach. People have asked us to fly to Turks and Caicos. We'll do it. I always say, look, these things don't have a bathroom on board, so
you're going to want to be.
I'll send them to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of how you can serve like the yacht clientele, right? So from yacht owners to brokers to managers and mechanics, what's your hope? Because it seems like you have the medevac set, you got the passenger set, but everybody that's over in the Bahamas either has a boat or wants to have a boat.
Yeah, and it's only growing, right?
Yeah,
The market's growing.
totally.
So look, a lot of people don't know who we are, right? And that's why we're really excited to be here with you. The way we look at it with the yacht market, I've got a friend of mine who chartered a yacht. He was down in the Exumas, so he rode the yacht out there, him and his family, and then we picked him up by seaplane. And he's like, why the hell would anybody want to ride the boat, And by the way, the boat doesn't lose any money by sending, the people on the plane. It's actually a better experience. And you could actually turn more charters by leaving the boat where it is versus bringing people back and forth. Sure. So that's one benefit. If you think it's also people arrive there happy, they're not crossing the Gulf Stream or whatever else. And then when you think about a boat that might break down or might need a part or run out of caviar or whatever, and instead of moving the boat or sending a tender, the plane comes right to the boat.
Yeah.
Delivers the part, gets the boat running again. And then of course the medevac piece I think is a critical component to that.
Yeah.
Someone slips and falls on the deck or whatever reason, we could get people out of there pretty quick.
Yeah.
Crew changes, if you go down the long list of things that yachts need, the seaplanes can actually provide most of that. And even I mentioned earlier the yacht chase piece. So one of the cooler products that we have is the partnership we have with Coco, which is the domestic seaplane, which is again our procedures, our training, with Bahamian crews.
Right, and allowed to go domestic, Bahamas to Bahamas.
Correct, yeah, Bahamian crews on Bahamian airplanes, which is, by the way, has never existed to that extent ever in history. And a yacht can request Coco to chase them down island, and guess what? You could pick someone up and go upwind and let them do a 50-mile kiteboarding experience, right? I call it the hella skiing of the Bahamas, if you will, right?
That's cool.
And it's a lot of cool stuff you could do with the seaplane on the yacht chase piece. It's just one of the toys that are available.
Yeah. And you mentioned, we're no stranger to natural disasters here, and especially in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge that you guys could, something happens and you can get people out or whatever needs to be out before, and then after the storm hits, you can go help rebuild it. And it sounds like you've done some of that.
Yeah, we actually have it down to a science, and I love to say because of I think the military experience that we have, we actually run it like a military operation. We do a ton of flying pre-storm when the storm's coming. We're getting people out. Yep. We're doing a ton of pre-storm evacuations. Then we move the airplanes out of the way of the storm. We let the storm pass. The entire time we're actually coordinating with Bahamian government and other partners that we have, so companies like Bradford Marine, where we put guys and girls on the ground to actually set up medical facilities and stuff. Yeah. And as soon as the storm passes, we come in behind it, we start running evacuations, we start bringing in supplies. And it's been, we've done this 4 storms, and Dorian was the largest one. So it's a good capability again to have, and I've always said, look, we're a guest of the Bahamas, we're a US company operating in the Bahamas, so we have assets, we have people, we have capability. If they need us, we'll be there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it being engineering week, I'm curious about how you guys maintain these planes. Everybody knows that saltwater corrodes everything it sees, and so you're flying and landing in salt water. Where's your maintenance base? How do you take care of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously I was a boat owner too before I started the company, and took a lot of the things I learned, by the way, from owning a boat and also flying for the Navy, where you have F-18 sitting on a deck getting splashed by salt water. So I talked to a lot of our guys that I used to work with too, and we came up with this amazing corrosion proofing program. So we have a maintenance facility here at FLL. Everything's in-house. We actually partnered with Broward College. We've hired a lot of their young guys and girls that are coming out of school, and we created a kind of a development program similar to what we did with the pilots to train up aviation maintainers. And Pratt & Whitney says you have to wash these engines every once a week. We wash them every day. And if that airplane touches salt water, it gets a full compressor wash. And we've gone through several hot sections where they do the inspection on the engine at 3,000 hours. We actually have an extended overhaul program. And Pratt & Whitney, which is the manufacturer of the engine, said these are some of the cleanest Caravan engines they've ever seen compared to other land airplanes. So our team does a phenomenal job of treating corrosion. Anytime a panel opens, they use Corrosion X, they spray it up in there, so we're fogging the airplanes consistently. Yep. And then we use actually a marine product called Salt Away, which you probably use on a boat, right? Yeah, so we've become very good at I would say, preventing and corrosion growth in these airplanes, and obviously it's a constant fight, but I think the team does a really nice job.
Gotcha. So the plane lands. Let's say it's coming from Nassau, or is up next to a yacht and is bringing passengers back. You're going to come in here to FLL. You're going to clear customs, right? Yeah. And then what's the next process for the plane, and how quickly can you turn it and do your maintenance and whatever needs to be done so that it can go back out again? And does that happen?
Yeah. So we may do several flights in a day. So we could turn a plane in 30 minutes. But at the end of the day, it looks like, that Formula One pit crew, right?
Yeah.
Airplane taxis into the hangar, all the maintainers come out, the pilots get out, they clean the inside, and then the maintainers start, basically pumping the floats, washing the airplane, then they'll do the engine rinse. And honestly, that's what, when people say, wow, you guys might be a little bit more expensive than land caravan operators, the amount of labor that goes into corrosion prevention, as you can imagine, is very high. So if the airplane touches the salt water, does one flight into salt water, it's about 2 to 3 hours of labor that night. Just the corrosion treatment piece, and again, it costs us a lot of money to do that, but these airplanes are in phenomenal shape.
Yeah. And what about your relationship with Riva? Who is Riva? Where I know they're based in Fort Lauderdale, but tell me how that came to be.
Yeah, Riva Air Ambulance, great group of guys and girls over there, and they do medevac with jets, right? And we had been in talks with them for a while, and like I said, after Dorian, I said this airplane should be doing the evac for sure in these islands. So we came together with them last year and put a program together. It was about a year ago. We launched it in basically early winter of 22. And again, great partnership. So they'll get the call or we'll get the call. We'll start configuring the airplane. They'll send medical crew over. They handle the patient, we handle the flight, and they handle the ambulance piece on the way back. We've done really cool things with them because nobody's ever loaded a plane or a patient into a seaplane before. It just doesn't exist. So we're working actually with engineers to develop this autoloader, right, that will basically carry the passenger, I think up to 300 pounds, up the steps, up the floats, and into the cabin. And that's something new and unique that we're putting together as well.
Yeah, that's very cool. You had said it before, but I wanted to go back to, what is the process like for a caravan on floats docking or getting close to a yacht or something that's not an airport? How does that even work?
Yeah, so these airplanes have, it's interesting, again, when you go piston or turbine, right? Turbines are really cool, especially the PT6. We actually have full control over the propeller, so we can actually go backwards on this thing.
Cool.
Which doesn't exist in the piston airplanes, right? So as we get closer to a dock or to a boat, we go into what's called beta, and the pilot's able to actually flatten the pitch of the prop, and it'll stop it. And they could actually back it down if they have to, very similar to a boat. And it's single engine, so imagine driving a single engine boat, you have to figure the winds and the currents, and we do all of the marine training with them as if they're learning how to drive a boat, but in the airplane. So as you get closer to a dock or to a boat, the captain will stop it. This is the beauty of the 2-pilot crew, and the co-pilot will get out, and the captain will hold position, and the co-pilot will tie everything off, right, or drop an anchor. And we won't ever approach a yacht. We'll stop near a yacht, and they'll either throw us a line or we'll drop an anchor, and then we usually either tender or they'll pull us in close to the yacht, and people will get off the front of the floats.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What is the craziest request you've had for where you said, this is totally outlandish? I can't believe that these people want me to go do this.
So this is an old story, but it's a good story. It's one of the first things we've ever done. I remember when we just had the one airplane. And Nick, you met Nick, my partner, and we started the company together. So I was managing the charters, and we had a charter, and then he calls me up. He says, "Hey, this guy called with a medical request. I need to get a doctor out to a yacht." It was a yacht in just north of, I want to say it was north of the Abacos, right? So he gets the latitude, longitude, and everything else, and he shows up at Miami to pick up the doctor. And by the way, I canceled the charter because I'm like, this is a medical request. We got to do this. It's priority. And I canceled the charter, and he calls me. He's laughing. I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "You won't believe who the patient is." Well, he goes, "The doctor's a veterinarian." He said, "The patient's a 30-year-old parakeet." No. I kid you not. We flew an hour and a half with a vet to a waiting yacht, and I'm happy to say, like 2 years ago, I heard the parakeet's still alive and kicking. Wow. So we saved the parakeet's life. Apparently had a stroke.
That is wild.
Yeah, no, wild. So there's a lot of crazy stuff. We flew a goat. I have a picture of a goat sticking the head out of the door.
No way.
Yeah, off an island because we need to get goats off the island. Yeah, we've done a lot of cool things.
Did you make them buckle up?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't on the plane. You got to tie those things down. Right? So no, we fly dogs and cats and birds and everything else. But I think the parakeet was one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Rob, tell me about pricing. If I wanted to take Tropic Ocean Airways to either Bimini or somewhere else in the Bahamas, or even the Southern Exumas or the Keys, what are we looking at for a price?
Yeah, so we have the range, right? So we have our scheduled service product, which is by the seat.
Yeah.
And we're a little bit more pricey than say Spirit, right? But it's a different experience. So Bimini, roughly $350 a person one way. Nassau is around $370 one way, right? Between the two. And again, it's a private terminal experience on a per seat price. All the way to, if we're going to do a yacht charter in the southern Exumas, might be around 12,000, 13,000. Yeah, resorts a little bit closer, around 6,000 or 7,000 for a charter. So it's really, that's the range of it. The per seats, I think it's pretty reasonable, and even the our charter rates are obviously less than a jet, what you're seeing out there in the market.
So how do we get a hold of you? How would I book a charter? Where can we find out all your information?
Yeah, so our website for Tropic Ocean is flytropic.com. We actually have Instagram, which is @flytropic. It's actually a really cool post with seaplanes on it. And then then Coco is flycocobahama.com.
Okay.
And that's the intra-Bahamas airline.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been great, man. I've really
appreciate
enjoyed
it, man.
talking to you, and
thanks.
that'll do it for us here from Fort Lauderdale. Signing off. Thanks.
And that's a wrap for today. Yacht Engineering Week 2023 has been brought to you by our title sponsor, Pantropic Power, the local cat dealer, and our anchor sponsor, Robert Allen Law, the business of yachts. We would also like to thank our segment sponsors, Lürssen, Viking Marine Exhaust, Zemos, Marine Data Solutions, MPI, Bradford Marine, Ditech, Lewis Marine Supply, MPT, Tropic Ocean Airways, Ward's Marine Electric, Seabob, AquaBanas. We'll see you again tomorrow, 9:30 sharp.